Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're heading somewhere fascinating and honestly a bit contradictory. We're going deep into the world's most desolate places.
The heart of the desert.
Exactly. We're diving into the story of a real biological nonconformist, the ancient, unbelievably resilient Populus euphratica, or the desert poplar.
And this deep dive is so necessary because, well, this species is a fundamental paradox. You have a tree, a huge woody plant that's not just surviving, it's thriving in some of the most extreme environments on Earth.
Right. We're talking frigid cold, scorching heat, and these relentless drought cycles that can last for decades. And when we say ancient, we mean ancient. Sources suggest this thing has been around for about 60 million years. That's a timescale that just boggles the mind.
It predates so many modern plant families. It's a true study in evolution under extreme pressure.
So our mission today is to really unpack the blueprint, both architectural and genetic, that's allowed this tree to be the ultimate desert survivor. And, importantly, why its toughness is so vital for us today.
The desert forced it down a completely unique evolutionary path.
Okay, let's get into that blueprint then, starting with how it looks. If you picture a typical poplar, you're probably thinking tall, straight, stately. The desert poplar is not that.
Not at all. Structurally, it's a rebel, as you said. It's in the willow family, Salicaceae, and it can get up to 15 meters tall, but its trunks are almost never straight.
They're all gnarled and twisted.
Exactly. Twisting at these odd angles, often growing low and wide. It looks more like a giant overgrown shrub than a typical tree. It's a direct response to the wind and the shifting sand.
So it's basically choosing stability over aesthetics. But what I find even more curious is the leaf structure. I read they're heteromorphic.
Yes, and heteromorphic just means it can grow different shapes of leaves on the very same tree.
On the same branch, even.
On the same branch structure,
Yeah.
You can find these narrow willow-like leaves, and then right next to them, broad, rounded ones. It just refuses to settle on one identity.
Which, when you think about it, makes perfect sense for a high-stress environment, right? Different shapes are better for different things. One for sun, another to stop water loss. It's like a multi-tool.
It's a remarkable adaptation. And geographically, this tree is, well, it's all over the place, centered around the Euphrates River. That's where it gets its name. But it stretches from North Africa, the Middle East, all the way to Western China.
And the biggest, most critical forests of these trees are found in the one place you would least expect to find a forest of any kind.
That's right, the Tarim Basin in China's Taklamakan Desert. We're talking about the world's second largest shifting sand desert, a place defined by its dryness and volatility.
And more than half the world's desert poplars live there.
They do, just clinging to life along the Tarim River.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because even though it lives in this incredibly arid place, the tree itself is fundamentally riparian. It has to have water. What does that tell us about the desert ecosystem itself?
It tells us that water is the absolute key to life, even if that water source is totally unreliable. Riparian just means it grows only along riverbanks. It's one of the only trees that can form natural forests and river valleys that cut through these bone-dry deserts.
But the rivers it depends on, like the Tarim, they're not exactly predictable.
Not at all. They're capricious. They constantly shift their course and length because of the wind and the high evaporation. It's a moving target.
So it's tied to this moving water source, and in doing so, it creates an oasis in the middle of all that desolation. And that oasis is incredibly rich, isn't it?
It really is. These desert poplar forests, they have the highest plant biodiversity of any desert region on the planet. They create these microclimates that support dozens of other species, Russian olive, camel thorn, all kinds of salt-tolerant shrubs.
This sounds like it's more than just a survivor. It sounds like a foundational piece of the puzzle.
And that brings us to the so what. The desert poplar is a textbook example of
A keystone species.
a keystone species, exactly. A species whose presence is just disproportionately important for holding the entire ecosystem together. You take away the desert poplar, and the whole region changes. Permanently.
And the most practical impact of that is stabilization, right? Holding the ground together.
Absolutely. They're the chief engineers of the desert floor. They stabilize these massive sand dunes, the riverbanks, and in a shifting sand desert like the Taklamakan, that's crucial. It minimizes sandstorms and actively holds back desertification.
Which protects farms and infrastructure further downstream.
Precisely.
Okay, that stabilizing effect is clearly vital, but it really begs the question, how does it physically do it? How does it anchor those dunes when the surface river might be gone for years? There has to be something incredible going on underground.
It all comes down to its legendary root systems. I mean, they are incredible. The desert poplar sends its roots 6 to 8 meters straight down.
6 to 8 meters, that's like 2 stories underground.
It is. And then they spread out laterally for dozens of meters. The network is so dense, it just grips the soil and holds it fast, even years after the tree itself has died.
So that depth, it's not just about being in anger. It has to be about finding water when the surface is completely dry.
Exactly. That depth puts it in a very special ecological category. It's a phreatophyte.
Phreatophyte. And that's a plant with these super long roots that tap directly into the phreatic zone.
The phreatic zone, yeah. Or at least its fringes. It's that deep underground layer that's completely saturating with groundwater. So the poplar is basically building a living pipeline straight down to an aquifer.
A private well.
A private well, that's a perfect way to put it. It explains how it survives those long droughts after the surface rivers have vanished. It's running on a dual system. Use the river when it's there, tap the deep well when it's not.
I imagine that makes it a master opportunist when it comes to growth.
Oh, ruthlessly efficient. When water is abundant, its growth speeds up like crazy to capitalize. When the supply dries up, and it always does, growth just slows right down. It can stay almost dormant for decades, just waiting for the next big flood.
Okay, let's shift to the final incredible adaptation. Salt. A tree that needs fresh water but lives in a desert. I mean, that has to lead to huge problems with salt in the soil over time.
It does. As water evaporates, all the salt gets left behind, and it concentrates to just remarkable levels. Now, the desert poplar isn't technically a halophyte, a salt-loving plant, but its tolerance is breathtaking. It can grow just fine in soil with 2% salinity.
2%.
And it can survive in soil with up to 5% salinity.
Let's put that number in perspective for everyone. Seawater is typically about 3.5% salt. So this tree is surviving in conditions saltier than the ocean. For reference, water with even 0.5% of salt is considered too salty for most of our crops. This tree is an extreme outlier.
And that's exactly why it's so critical for scientific research. Scientists have sequenced its entire genome just to figure out which genes are responsible for this salt tolerance.
And what's the implication of that for us? Why should we care about its genetic code?
Well, because that code could be a blueprint for food security in a changing world. If researchers can isolate the genes that let this poplar handle salt, we might be able to integrate them into crops.
Like rice or wheat.
Rice, wheat, corn, you name it. This tree could hold the genetic key to making our food supply resistant to drought and salt.
That puts its ancient survival into a very modern context. So how does this incredibly tough, genetically valuable plant actually reproduce?
Its seeds are extremely light, almost like dandelion fluff. The wind carries them onto the riverbanks during flood season. But here's the catch, the ultimate fragility. Its reproduction is a high-stakes Goldilocks scenario.
Meaning everything has to be exactly right.
Perfectly right. 3 conditions have to align. The temperature needs to be between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius. The soil has to be completely soaking wet. And most importantly, the floodwater has to have very little salt.
So the annual flood does more than just provide water.
It does. The flood has 2 jobs. Bring the moisture and, crucially, flush all the accumulated salt out of the topsoil. It temporarily resets the conditions so a vulnerable little seedling can get started before the salt builds up again.
And if those conditions are met?
They have an incredible 80% germination rate. You'll often see these perfect, neat lines of new seedlings tracing exactly where the edge of the floodwater was.
So this species, it can handle 60 million years of environmental stress, but its entire future hinges on one perfect, temporary, low-salt flood. Which brings us to the threats. If it's this resilient, what on earth could be causing its current catastrophic decline?
The irony is just. It's profound. The tree can handle heat, cold, salt, you name it. But it cannot handle human resource demands. The threats are farming, deforestation, and the big one, excessive diversion of river water for irrigation.
Especially along the Tarim.
Especially there.
So since the tree is totally riparian, and its babies need that massive low-salt flood to wash the soil clean, diverting the rivers, it completely destroys that Goldilocks scenario.
It's catastrophic. By damming and diverting the river upstream, we reduce the flood. That prevents the flushing action, so the soil just stays too salty for new seeds to germinate. We are, in effect, sterilizing the forest floor.
And the data on this is pretty stark, isn't it?
It is. Since the 1950s, the desert poplar forests in the Taklamakan have shrunk by nearly half.
By half.
This ancient survivor, this keystone of the desert, is losing the battle not to nature but to us. to our water management. Its survival now depends entirely on conservation efforts to restore those flood pulses.
So to recap the key takeaways here, the desert poplar is this ancient riparian anomaly. It's a phrydophyte, tapping deep into the earth for water with this incredible genetically valuable salt tolerance. And it plays this vital keystone role in stopping the desert from just consuming everything.
And that leads to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. Consider this. The desert poplar evolved over 60 million years to withstand almost every natural extreme thrown at it. But is now collapsing because human activity is disrupting the one very specific low salt condition it needs to reproduce. So what does the decline of this highly specialized keystone species tell us about the long-term viability of other less specialized ecosystems that rely on these same shrinking, increasingly salty water sources?
It's the canary in the coal mine for arid regions.
It is. It's the canary in the coal mine globally. And its fate is a direct reflection of our ability to manage our own thirst.